Welcome to Category Visionaries, the show dedicated to exploring exciting visions for the future from the founders who are on the front lines building it. In each episode, we'll speak with a visionary founder who's building a new category or reimagining an existing one. We'll learn about the problem they solve, how their technology works, and unpack their vision for the future. I'm your host, Brett Stapper, CEO of Frontlines Media. Now let's dive right into today's episode. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Category Visionaries. Today we're speaking with Edward Wu, CEO and founder of Dropzone AI, a next-generation cybersecurity platform that's raised over $20 million in funding. Edward, how's it going today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
No problem. I'm super excited, and I'd love to just jump right in. Talk to us. What are you building today?
Yeah, so at Dropzone, we are building AI security analysts. So we're leveraging the advancements in generative AI to replicate the thought process and techniques of human cybersecurity analysts.
As I understand it, in the SOC, a lot of it's painful manual work. Is that a fair understanding?
Yes. You can think of a SOC kind of like, to some extent, a police department in the cyberspace, similar to police departments in large US cities. For SOCs, most of them are overwhelmed by the number of security alerts that the security analysts have to investigate each and every day.
What's going to happen to all of those? Is it maybe like level 1 analyst in the SOC? What's going to happen to them? Do they get moved into a different level of security or a different role in security? What happens to all of the security analysts out there?
Yeah, so at this moment, there's a recent survey that shows the world needs around, the world in aggregate has around 10 million cybersecurity job openings, but the world talent pool around cybersecurity is only 6 million. So there are a 4 million kind of talent shortage in cybersecurity alone. So our vision with our technology is by offloading the voluminous, repetitive, analytical work and a tier 1 work to our AI system, the human cyber defenders and the human SOC analysts get to focus only the real threats as well as critical projects.
Take us back to February 2023 when you were founding the company. What was it about this problem of bringing autonomous technology to the SOC? What was it about this problem and this solution and this company that made you say, yep, that's it, I'm going to go build a company around this?
Yeah, so February 2023. So before founding Dropzone, I was a senior principal scientist at another cybersecurity startup called ExtraHop Networks. So I was there for 8 years and I built ExtraHop's AI ML and detection product from scratch. And during my 8 years, I essentially was building technology that generates security alerts for the SOC teams to look at. So over that time, I was able to work with a lot of SOCs and really came away with the realizations that most SOCs are already struggling to properly investigate all the security alerts they are receiving. So instead of adding and generating more security alerts for us to investigate, I decided to switch sides and saw this opportunity to build technology that's specialized in the processing of security alerts.
How did you land your first paying customers? What was that like? Obviously, every founder that's listening in knows that can be difficult to get those first paying customers across the line. What was that like for you, and what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, I would say for us, our first paying customer was also our first POC. So I do think a lot of times it feels a little bit like matchmaking, where obviously in the early days, the technology is immature, the team is small. And I think for us, we were able to identify our first POC and then later first paying customer by essentially looking for practitioners in the cybersecurity space who are early adopters, the people who to some extent have almost as much conviction and kind of trust and faith in where the technology can ultimately deliver.
As I was preparing for this interview, I spent some time on your website, and I have to say that the messaging is very clear. It's very crisp. Now, when I look at your background, and as you were talking there, you didn't say anything about a marketing background or a go-to-market background. So talk to us about what that was like for you learning marketing, and then talk to us about how you got your messaging and all of that so crisp and so clear.
Thank you. I appreciate you liking our messaging. For me, yes, I don't have a marketing background. I'm a product and software developer. However, during my time at ExtraHop, I actually worked with marketing extensively, trying to help position us, correctly say the correct things and be precise and not undersell, but also simultaneously not oversell the technology. Cybersecurity is a very interesting space with regards to marketing because the technologies are pretty sophisticated and oftentimes it's difficult to actually evaluate the product. And because of that, in cybersecurity, there are a lot of vendors that take advantage of the fact of those factors and really sell FUD. So for me, one thing I have done, a practice I have been doing for many years is I do spend a lot of time going to in the large industry expos and trade shows, spend time actually like going through the booths and hear everybody's pitches. And I have found those industry expos to be a great opportunity to get a condensed shot of, the pitches from like 20 or 50 different vendors. And by doing that, I think it helps me to build a subconscious sense of, what kind of pitches are good and what kind of pitches are bad. Because if you get 50 pitches in a single day, I think most people intuitively can figure out, oh, I like that one better versus this. So that's one exercise I've done for many years that I think helped me to calibrate how to accurately present our technology and how to precisely message our value proposition without just become selling FUD.
This show is brought to you by Frontlines Media, a podcast production studio that helps B2B founders launch, manage, and grow their own podcast. Now, if you're a founder, you may be thinking, I don't have time to host a podcast. I've got a company to build. Well, that's exactly what we built our service to do. You show up and host, and we handle literally everything else. To set up a call to discuss launching your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. Now, back to today's episode. I've been going to RSA and Black Hat for the past 5 years or so. And whenever I'm there and I'm walking around, I just think, wow, everyone seems to be kind of saying the same thing. And I just know it's very, very difficult in cybersecurity to really stand out and rise above the noise. Mm-hmm. What are you seeing that works? How are you rising above all that noise apart from having very crisp and very clear messaging?
Yeah, good question. I would say two things. One is being very precise on what we can actually do. I think one big challenge with cybersecurity messaging overall is, you can say, subconscious bias or tendency for vendors to say, to message essentially, buy us and you will be safe. Most practitioners know that's not the truth. So being precise on what we can actually deliver and what we cannot, I think that's very important. And then another component specific for Dropzone is we are building in public, and we have been very transparent. For example, we are the only vendor in our market, large or small, that has a publicly facing test drive, our website, and that's ungated, where anybody on the internet can try and place with our technology. In addition to that, our website, we have a dozen of different interactive product demos. Again, that's ungated, where everybody can see how our technology works in different real-world scenarios. And I found that being transparent and not hide the technology behind closed-door demos really help us to build credibility and allow our buyers, as you know, modern buyers do a lot more research than before they even reach out.
Who are you primarily marketing to then? Is it like the director of security operations? Is it the CISO? Who are you trying to really speak to?
Yeah, for us, I would say we're primarily targeting the director, VP, and CISO level. Obviously, everybody wants to talk to the CISO at the same time. Obviously, CISO are oftentimes very overwhelmed by the vendor outreach and messaging. For us, primarily, we focus on the VP and director, somebody who can see the big picture and can have interest and affinity to testing out new technologies to help the operation to move the needle, while simultaneously is closer to the day-to-day, who understand the pain points of, people doing the tier one work, as well as the difficulty in finding enough people to thoroughly investigate 100% of the security alerts.
When it comes to your market category, how do you think about the market category that you're in? Is this a category creation play where you're creating a completely new category?
Yeah, I do think we are creating a category kind of similar to, if we were to zoom out, what we are building at Dropzone is kind of part of the bigger tectonic shift or the tectonic wave of AI insert job role here, right? So AI software developer, AI SDR, AI customer support. And I think similar to all of those, like there are no existing market segments, no product segments that directly competes with the number of entry-level roles in those verticals. So for us, AI security analyst, it is a new category. And most people, most security practitioners don't know it's possible and they have never heard of it.
What are you doing to educate the market so that they're aware that the solution exists? And I think most importantly, they trust it. How do you get people to trust something that's so new, that's so different?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the billion-dollar question we're still trying to figure out ourselves. However, we have seen a number of factors at play. So part of it is it's kind of a little bit similar to autonomous driving, right? There is a chicken and egg problem because if nobody tries it, then nobody can get reviews about it, about the technology, and then, the late maturity or the earlier maturity will not be able to build enough confidence to buy it. So for us, a big part of building trust is identifying early adopters. So we actually work with them to mature our technology. And during that, we are also building trust with our early adopters and turning our early adopters into early advocates. Because the technology in the vacuum, every vendor, at least in cybersecurity, all claims the product is perfect. Again, that's far from the reality. And that's where customary third-party industry validation and also the product being transparent are realistically what it can and cannot do today make a big difference.
As I mentioned there in the intro, you've raised over 20 million to date. What have you learned about fundraising throughout this journey?
That's a good question. For us, our fundraising is a little bit unique that both of our rounds were preemptive. So we actually didn't have to go out there and pitch 50 investors in order to get the investment. So I would say our experience is definitely pretty unique and biased. But in my mind, the best time to raise money is when you don't need it. And this is where, to some extent, by focusing on building the technology, making sure our early adopters are happy. And because for us, we are working in the intersection of the two largest tailwinds in the tech industry, which are Gen AI and cybersecurity. By focusing on the technology, it kind of allowed the right investors to find us naturally.
Final question for you. Let's zoom out 3 to 5 years into the future. What's the big picture vision look like?
Yeah, so for Dropzone, our vision is, if we look at cyber defense today, it's clear that human cyber defenders are losing. If we look at the number of attacks, the intensity of the attacks, and that's also when we know attackers today are not yet fully utilizing the newer technologies like generative AI, it's clear that human cyber defenders alone are insufficient to protect our shared digital future. And this is where our vision is for Dropzone to be the leader in the space where we are leveraging generative AI to build AI systems that can augment and reinforce and force multiply the human cyber defenders.
Amazing. I love the vision. Final question, or I guess not really a question, but if there's any founders that are listening in, where should they go? Where can they follow more with what you're building, your journey? Where should they go?
Yeah, so definitely check us out at our website, which is dropzone.ai. Yeah, and as I mentioned, we do have a public test drive. So if you're interested, definitely feel free to check it out and let us know if you think, if our AI security analyst is very good, or maybe it made some mistakes.
Amazing. Edward, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
This episode of Category Visionaries is brought to you by Frontlines Media, Silicon Valley's leading podcast production studio. If you're a B2B founder looking for help launching and growing your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. And for the latest episode, search for Category Visionaries on your podcast platform of choice. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.